All right. So should I start like I do when I go to churches to train?
Yes.
This is a switcher.
Sure.
Okay. All right. It has buttons. Okay. And they light up when you press them. Okay. First of all, I'll just do a basic tour around the modules of this panel. And I mean, it looks like just a bunch of buttons on one panel, but there is a purpose for the way things are grouped, right? This is the cross point module. These 3 rows from here to here, the cross point, because that's where you choose cross points. And cross point is just an in and an out. What do I want to come in to go out, right? This row of buttons in the middle is the program bus. It never, let me turn that off. It never changes in that functionality. When I press a button on this row of buttons, I'm going to get whatever that source is on the air. Camera 1, camera 2, whatever, right?
Okay.
The only reason I would not get camera 2 when I press that button is if it's being covered up by another layer, otherwise known to a switcher as a keyer, right? To the young kids coming up these days, I explain to them that keyers are just like layers in Photoshop or After Effects. You know, you put things on top of stuff. Keyers are just real-time layers. It's another place for us to put something on top of the background video. Okay? And this background bus is just like the background layer in Photoshop. It's the base bottom layer, right? The next row of buttons down is the preset bus. Some people call it the preview bus. Either way, because it can be used to preview in the preview monitor what's next, right? And that's what you will always get as long as
There's nothing on top of it.
background is selected here and there's nothing on top of it. Right? So there's that one extra qualification. This is background, key 1, key 2, key 3. This is part of the next transition panel, and I'll explain what that does in a second. But this is always preset or preview, right? So the function of these buttons never changes. Where the fun really starts is this row of buttons, where its functionality constantly changes. This, when I have key 1 pressed up here, this is now the input to keyer number 1. If I press keyer 2 button, this is now the input to my second keyer over here. And keyers, like I said, are just layers, and they're in order, sort of reverse order. This is the top layer is key 3. Right? This panel can also be used as a small carbonite panel, so it's actually got a button for a 4th keyer that's not actually used.
It's not active in this
On
box.
a crossover, you only have 3 keyers. On the carbonite and above, you have 4 keyers. The newest one, the Acuity, their biggest switcher has 8 keyers. It's mind-blowing. I don't know why anybody would need that many keyers. But
Well, I don't know. Why do you need 7 or 8 buses on a Cayenne? ME buses on a Cayenne. Except that when you start doing all the bugs and...
right. So anyway, so you always have to be careful before you change anything on this row of buttons to make sure you've selected up here the functionality for that row of buttons. All right? That makes sense so far?
Yep.
All right. And from key 1 all the way over to bank 4 are the buttons that determine what this row does. These first 4 buttons are the keyer types. Sounded like I was from Kentucky there for a second.
That's all right. You're in Texas.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. I figured Kentucky, Texas, they're close enough. You'll understand it.
Believe me, I understand Kentucky.
So there are 4 types of keys you can do, 4 types of extra layers.
Okay.
There's self-key, auto key, chroma key, and DVE keys. DVE stands for digital video effects. That means I'm actually not just layering the video, but manipulating the video, sizing and positioning. Right? Chroma key, everybody knows what a chroma key is, green screen, weather wall type stuff. The chroma key built into this switcher is excellent,
Yes, it is.
by the way. It really does a good job, and it automatically sets itself up. There's no, if you have fairly even lighting, am I blocking you?
No.
You okay? If you have fairly even lighting on your green screen, this will pick the key out of it, and you don't have to tweak anything, as long as it's even lighting. As long as they're not wearing like a green dress. I mean, that kind of,
Well,
you know,
yeah.
that can, if it's different enough green, it'll still pick it out. But, auto select, well, let me go to self key first. Self key is the switcher's way of generating a key signal. And what I mean by that is, for every key layer that you try to use on a switcher, there's actually two things involved. A hole cutter, you have to cut the hole with something, and then you have to fill the hole with something. So every key does that in one way or another. With the chroma key, it picks a color and gets rid of it, and that becomes the hole. Then you fill that with something else, and that's how you layer stuff. With self key, it uses the brightness or the luminance value of the key source.
So it's a Luma key.
It's exactly what it is. Luma key, self key, interchangeable.
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever that brightness is how you determine where the hole is, and then you're just filling it with itself. That's the name, they call it self key. You can also invert that key and key the dark parts if you want to do that. Okay, does that make sense? Let me do a quick example. Like what's in our coming out of our CG at the moment. Let's do this one. That is key 2. I'm going to make it a self key, and I'm going to turn my clip so that I can adjust. Let me get to the right gain. I always forget which way the gain goes. Right there. Okay. Right? So this is what's actually coming out of the graphics generator, that
Right.
blue box.
Blue box with
And
the
there's a
text.
key signal coming with it. But I'm ignoring that key signal and I'm doing a self key. So it's looking at the brightness of that graphic. So as I adjust my clip settings, it will see the white letters before it sees the blue box.
Right.
And I can clip that, make a nice key out of it. And if I keep going, eventually it will see the brightness of the blue box and start keying. Well, see, I went too far and it went black, so it's keying everything. But then I start backing back off again, and now I'm keying that. Now this actually works pretty well if you've got a definite point between the brightest and the darkest parts of your graphic. You can get a really clean key out of it. This is really kind of a carryover. We like to talk about the good old days. Back when I first got in television, we edited commercials for the TV station in Studio Control.
Yep.
We didn't have nonlinear editors, and the client would walk in with their logo on an art card. It would be either it would be a black card with a bright logo on it, or it would be a white card with a darker logo on it. We would take that out in the studio and put it on a stand, shoot it with a studio camera, and we could self-key that logo and put it anywhere we needed to in that commercial. If it needed to be in a different place or a different size, we went out there and reframed the camera to put it in the right place. Right? So
I remember that.
so that's where self-key started.
That's right.
Originally, all keys were just self-keys.
Yeah.
That's all they would do, and then they started getting more sophisticated.
Well,
The art
then the
department
filtering
made
got
stacks of
better.
white
and we-
cards for the newscast, and somebody's changed them on
There
camera
you are.
stands.
There you
So
are.
did
Yep,
lower
but
thirds.
when I started out, we had a four-sided thing. It was a four-sided letter change sign, black
With the little
black
stick-in
background,
letters?
little stick-on letters,
Yep.
and doing the weather forecast. Here's your forecast. Here's tomorrow. Turn it. Here's your tomorrow's forecast.
So the switcher is actually creating its own key signal, its own alpha, for another way of
Okay.
saying it.
And if you were really fancy, you
self-key.
made slides. You make-
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't
Oh,
have
put
time
those
for
right in front of the
Slide-
camera.
where
no,
the white
put 'em in a
comes in
slide
first?
chain.
No, put them in a projector and then shoot the.
Telecine,
Oh,
Shoot the
put them
screen.
in the. Shoot the.
Well,
the
you know,
projection.
Put 'em in
ex-
film chain.
fancy TV stations had a film chain with,
Yes.
with a slide carousel on it
Yeah, that's what we
that
had.
would project it right into the camera.
So with the clip set to where
Wow,
just
that's
the
even
white
more
letters
ghetto.
are showing, is there an inverse you can hit?
What?
That's even
Yes.
more ghetto than I expected.
Yes, when I select self key,
Yep.
I have various
Well, you
options.
just shooting
Right.
the projection instead
And
of
one of
sticking
them
the
is
slide
invert.
right next to the lens.
Okay, that's what I'm.
So now I'm keying the black parts out
Oh, you didn't. How'd you do the invert?
on the menu.
Oh, on the menu.
Yeah.
Okay.
The menu, the switcher is really smart in that it follows you around through the menu system.
Okay.
So when I press a button like a self key,
Yeah.
it gives me my key or settings. And the first three that it thinks I need show up.
Okay.
If those aren't the ones I need, the next button illuminates that says, oh, you got some more options to look at. So I hit next. The next one over is invert on and off, or make linear, which means it affects the gain to like 50%, so you get a nice roll off,
Right. Okay.
which softens the edges and makes it look really nice if the graphics designed right. For a self key, it's really tricky to use linear.
Yeah, I was just curious if you.
So
adjusted your
so
clip.
with invert turned on, then I go back to my clip settings. Notice, okay, now everything's keyed out, and as I go backwards,
You get rid
now I'm
of
seeing
something
through the
first.
white.
Yeah.
Then it should later let me see through the blue, as I keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking.
That
Come
would
on.
work much better if you. were
Now I'm
using
seeing through the
impact.
blue. And then if I keep going, then it totally
Yeah.
disappears.
Okay.
Because I had it inverted, and so it's looking for
Yeah.
dark areas.
Yeah.
And I just tweaked it out. Right?
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
So back to off. You also have a mask on your keys. You can. So say we're shooting that customer's logo, and we want to frame it down in the corner. Okay, well that looks fine, except the edge of the graphics falling off my screen around the edges. I can just do a mask down to the part I need, and it uses either a box wipe, so you can do left, right, top, and bottom, or you use any of these wipe patterns
Huh. Okay.
to do the mask. All right.
Okay.
So the next type of key is the one we'll use most often in this situation, and that's auto key or auto select. A character generator or anything that's designed to be keyed to a switcher will always output two signals, a key and a field, right? An alpha and a field. Whatever. I use alpha and key interchangeably. There's some people that get picky and say technically that's not accurate, but
Yeah.
the end result is the same. So auto select tells the switcher, and this has to do with the setup of the switcher. When the inputs are plugged physically into the back of the switcher, there's a key and a field plugged in from the character generator. And you go into the setup and you say, okay, input 5 is my CG, input 6 is the key signal for the CG, and you internally tell it to tie those together. So that when I choose auto select, it knows if I'm using, okay, let's say I'm going to use key 1 is the CG, which is the one we've been working on all morning. It knows there's a key signal tied in. There's a key and a field coming out of that box, right? So if I choose auto select, that's why I get my nice key, and my clip and gain should have no effect because it's just using the hard key signal from there. Now if I wanted to look at that key signal, under my shift input, I have, turn the key off, right? So there's the video coming out of the character generator,
Right.
out of the expression,
Right.
and there's the key signal coming out of the character generator. Now
Which is the
that's,
whole, it's-
right now it's just a solid white bar. If I designed a graphic that was see-through, that would be gray.
Right.
That's the way the alpha channels, the key channels work, is the more gray, the closer to black they get, the more transparent. That, everybody's good with that? Making sense? Right? So there's my video, there's my key. If it had transparency, you'd see layers of gray in there as well. And that gives me a nice clean signal because it has a definite place to cut the hole and a definite signal to fill the hole with the video. Right? Chroma key. Let's see if I can.
We can. Yeah. I can go pull the curtain back. Give you a green.
We can use yours, or there is a sample graphic that comes with the switcher that I can use. You just call it up in the
Okay.
still store. Her name's Anna, if it's in here.
It should be.
Browse.
And a Kornikova.
Green Gables.
Um,
Is that why? Probably.
Anna, let's see. Samples. What are we running? 1080?
Yeah, I think so.
1080. There's Anna. Loading, loading, loading.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep. She's green.
So, and this specific example is used because she has blonde hair with a lot of stringy hairs going everywhere, and she has some see-through in her blouse under her left arm. Notice that see-through? So this is a good graphic for, and she was like 40 years old when this picture was taken, and she's been in every raw switcher for at least 20 years. No telling what she looks like now, but
Probably the same.
anyway. So when you first turn on a keyer that has chroma key assigned as its type,
Okay.
it comes up in black and white grayish, and that's just the switcher's way of saying, hey dummy, you haven't set me up yet. Right? So I press the chroma key button, my chroma key menu appears by magic, right? There's two modes in the chroma key, advanced and basic. And the only difference is the advanced mode gives you more handles to adjust. Different things to adjust than the basic mode. Basic mode gives you 3 or 4 things you can adjust, advanced gives you like 8.
Right.
I'm not a chroma key expert, and I don't have to be because this switcher does such a good job, I almost never have to tweak anything, right? So I just leave it on advanced, and that gives the switcher all those handles to work with as well. Now in the second knob, I choose the color I want to key out, in this case green, and the third knob just says initialize. These knobs, by the way, are also buttons. They're not just knobs, they're buttons. So if I press initialize, boink, there is a pretty doggone good looking chroma key, and if, I don't know if we have any other sources to put behind her.
Bars, I can give you,
Well, this kind of works.
Yeah.
You can see the blue shining
Yeah.
through her blouse. You can see her individual
The
hairs are
red.
still keyed out pretty good. So it does a,
That's a pretty decent job. Yeah, you can see the purple behind there.
Yeah, that's really clean.
Yeah.
It is very clean.
it's a good key.
Mm-hmm.
now granted, that is
It's on a perfect
A,
background.
a perfectly lit green
There
screen
is that.
behind her.
Yeah,
That's,
but you have that dark shadow. I mean, you do have.
what did you notice what it did with that
It made
shadow?
a shadow.
It made a shadow.
Well,
Yeah,
find a
it's
source.
not good. There we go.
Key to
Yeah,
shadow,
see,
but it's
yeah.
see-through just like a shadow should be.
Yeah.
Now, there is a shadow adjustment in the advanced settings where if you have a news director that comes in and says, I hate shadows on my chroma keys, turn it off.
Right.
Dummy. Okay, I'll do it, but I won't like it. Okay? So, chroma key can be any of the, I think there's 6 color choices. Let's see, we got
Red, green.
red, magenta, blue, cyan, green, yellow. So, what was that? 5, 6?
There's. Hey, New York. Can you bring up New York behind her? Oh yeah, VTR2.
Yeah,
Is that playback too?
PB2.
Oh, cool. Neat.
So that's chroma key. DVE key is a whole different animal in that it's designed primarily just to use full frame video. Okay, so when I press DVE, telling the switcher to route that video source out through another circuit board and then back into that same button, but it lets me use my joystick to size and position that video and put it wherever I want to put it.
So picture in a picture for
Exactly.
news stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, put a shoulder graphic,
Yeah.
whatever.
You can do some cool things like add borders, soften the border, change the aspect ratio, keep hitting next. I have presets for border colors, or I can do hue, saturation, and luminance and make it any color I want to make it. 16.9 billion different colors. I can crop horizontally as a pair or individually, right? Crop this way or individually. I can actually freeze that image if that was moving video. I can actually freeze it, and just, until I turn that freeze knob back off again, it would just, whatever's in the box would be held like a still store. And that's it. You can also adjust the size and position with the knobs, which is when you're trying to be very precise.
It's probably easier.
It's the only way to be precise. The joystick is not real precise. Something else that you can do in the menu is to reset. If you double press any of these, it puts them back to their defaults. Right? So eventually you get back to normal. Right? So that's DVE. A lot of fun things you can do with that.
The source on Vita 1, would that be probably a luminance key, wouldn't it? Or
What?
If you want to put him over something,
yeah,
mhm.
to replace.
Yeah, it
the
would have to
black
be.
with something.
Yeah.
Just curious.
And he's got some pretty dark spots in his hair.
That's not
Yeah,
gonna key.
That's
And,
it.
Because
yeah,
you have
it
to-
would
that's
be-
what I key out.
it'd be tricky. I don't know, what does that hit the switcher? Bidder one?
Yes,
Is that playback one?
Try it and see how.
There it
yes,
is.
there he is.
Okay, so I'll put up a camera.
I didn't know
I'll
if that-
choose
try
key
to use
3,
color
make it a
key.
luminance key. Playback 1. Turn it on. Crank the game way down so I can get a precise. Gotta get close.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see the,
got a lot of.
So
Yeah.
so here's
Yeah,
what I
his hair is
do
dark, so
is
it's-
as I get as close as I can, and I still got some garbage in there.
Yeah.
So you garbage
Then-
man.
Then I can go to white, use a circle white, and I want to wipe to the same
It would get
source.
worse as soon as she rolled it. It
Right,
would
and
tear.
I'm going to position that wipe right behind his head,
Oh, you'll never know the
There
difference.
you go.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Cool.
and just to make it excellent, I need to
What is it?
soften the edge of that wipe a little bit, like that,
Darkness.
and then bring it back down right about there.
There you go.
That looks pretty clean to me.
Yeah.
Until he moves his head,
Yeah.
then he's got a big black spot on it. So, always a way to do something.
Don't move.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's news.
Yeah, that's against that dark blue with no light on it.
Mm.
Oh yeah,
Because you can see a little bit of blue right here.
yeah, just
That's all
very
it was,
little
was the
bit.
blue card with.
Yep.
I doubt if that's enough blue the chroma key would be able to see it.
Yeah, I don't
No.
think so.
There's no blue.
But I've got to try now that I've mentioned it.
So what are you doing? What are you doing? What are
I'm
you doing?
changing
try
it,
to
changing it
chroma
to a chroma key.
Chroma key.
I'm going to tell it to key blue,
Okay.
see if it can find it. It almost did it. A little
Pretty
noisy.
close.
Damn.
Yeah.
The problem is his shirt has some blue in it. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it
I
does.
Can see, I can see a little of the
Yeah.
wire through
Yeah.
there.
But it did a
Still pretty
good job trying.
Yeah. But again, you throw a.
For just punching it up, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody good with the 4 types of keys? All that
Yep.
makes sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I say, quick, give me a chroma key, you know how to set one up, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Probably not quickly, but yeah.
Well,
I'd get there, but I
yep.
don't like
Okay, that's fine.
And so, and you can assign these 3 keys assigned to these.
Correct.
Okay. So
Right.
select.
So this is the actual keys.
Right.
This is
Okay.
where you turn them off and on,
Okay.
and this assigns what's
Okay,
going
so I
into
want-
those keys,
Key 3 to be chroma key,
which would be this one,
which would be that.
right?
Which
So you'd
signs
hit,
it over
so you'd
there.
hit key 3,
Uh-huh.
choose
Chroma
what source you want to
Should
chroma
pick
key,
the source. Right.
and then tell it it's a chroma key.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you hit this button, the chroma key menu shows up.
Chroma key menu. Okay. All right.
Then you can choose your color and whatever.
Okay.
And you did a re-entry back to. With,
That's how I did the wipe
yeah,
to
you-
make his head.
That was a re-entry from here.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, because
Right.
when you start getting into re-entries, boy, that can get crazy.
Yeah, you don't have too many problems with this because you only have the one big ME.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
you can
but
really
This is all take sourcing and I'm keying it into camera over
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 camera.
camera.
Remember, this is always your background, no matter
Okay.
what.
Okay.
So
Okay.
anything else you do is a layer on top of the background.
Okay. You're probably
Right.
going here next, maybe. Now, how do I set up this really nice key here in preview, ready to go to program?
You're exactly right. I'm getting ready to do that next. You're exactly right. I just wanted to briefly
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
tell you
right,
what
right.
these next 8 buttons do. The ones that really are a lot of fun are the bank buttons because these get into keyboard macros or custom controls, meaning anything. And I'm a lazy operator when I'm on a switcher. If I do anything on a switcher that takes me more than 3 buttons to get to, I make a macro. Now it's 1 button.
Yeah, I can
And
see
that's-
that.
Okay.
And
I like
I mean, and some of my macros are 25, 30 steps deep, right? Because they do a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
You know, for instance, on a carbonite switcher using expression animations, it may take, to do an ESPN style wipe, just exactly the way they want it to work, might take 10 or 12 steps in a macro. Well, that's 12 steps that I could do manually and mess it up about every 3rd time I tried it, right? Custom control can do it faster, more precisely, and does it exactly the same way every time you push the button.
Yeah.
So, custom controls are your friends. And these 4 bank buttons are the way you tell these buttons that they are custom controls. Right? That make so
Okay.
so I could build a custom control under button 1, and apparently somebody's built something. It's doing a dissolve, I guess.
Who knows?
I'm not sure what. Let me check something just real quick. Custom control. Menu. Bank. How do I get to that other menu? It'll come to. There's a menu that there's usually a button for because I'm used to the carbonite, but I can't remember where it is on this one. Not run. Oop. Ah, there it is. So, custom control menu, custom control mnemonics, right?
Okay.
These buttons here
Yeah.
are showing you what your sources are.
Right.
If I turn this to full, now it's showing me the names of my custom controls that I have programmed into these buttons. If I choose anything else, it goes back to being my cross points,
Okay.
right? But if I choose a bank, now it's showing me my custom controls, and apparently only one of them's ever been built,
Okay.
right? And I get there by hitting the bank button, edit, and then next gets me to, now the other mode that you can put this in is called split mode. So now the bottom part of it shows you me my cross points, and the top part is the name of custom controls. That's really hard to read. I almost never use the split mode, unless for some reason I just have to. Right? So, but we'll get into what custom controls can do, but they're great for doing things like doing a special transition for me, and then leaving me reset back to what I think my default setup should be. When I'm operating a switcher, if I hit this auto trans button, I expect a 15 frame dissolve,
Okay.
no matter what. I just want a 15 frame, half second dissolve. Right? So if I got camera 1, camera 2, no keys turned on, there's my 15 frame dissolve.
Okay.
And I just like to know in the back of my mind that that's always what I'm going to get. So if I do some other transition, I do it with a custom control that does the transition for me,
Right.
just as if I had hit auto trans, but it's doing it for me. And then when it finishes, it leaves me back in the mode of 15 frame dissolve. That way I don't bag myself later by doing some fancy wipe, forgetting that I'm set up for a wipe, and then deciding, oh, we're in the national anthem, I need to do a nice slow dissolve to the flag,
Yeah.
and I get a left or right wipe instead. Ugh. You know,
Backwards is that?
yes.
So if you were gonna
Yes.
say, do a shot, a sports shot, and you have one shot on the field, now you wanna, hear from the reporter on the field, but you just wanna shrink your box back so that you see the reporter over here. Would you make a custom control for
Yes.
that?
Yes. You're getting into a little different area that I'll get into a little bit later,
Okay,
but a custom control would execute that
okay.
for me. There are also a function in the switcher called memories, effects memories. So I can build a setup like a box, a picture-in-picture type effect, and save that setup. And then when I recall that memory, the entire switcher is set up for that effect instantly. It's just an instant recall.
Okay.
And the quick way to get to those memories is to build a custom control that recalls it for me. I do everything with custom controls. They're great. Have I mentioned how much I like custom controls? Custom controls are what makes this little switcher act like a much bigger switcher, is another way to put
I
it.
did have a question concerning the shift button. Say, for instance, I don't know if there's anything on shift on the camera 2 position.
There's not.
Okay. Well, I guess my question is, say on program you're on your source,
Mhm.
whatever source it is, color background or whatever. When you press the shift button, and it goes to the secondary source, can you select that
Yes.
same button?
Yeah. And you have to hold, this is like a true shift key. You have to hold it down,
Okay.
right? So if I select M3 as my source,
Okay.
that's as long as
That's
I'm holding the
giving you
shift
alpha.
button,
Yeah.
As long as you're
that's what I ask it to do.
Yeah.
As soon as I turn that button loose, I'm back to my normal sources.
so you could select that same source back to your normal source, and would it replace? It would replace.
Well,
that, right?
Yeah.
If I press this button, I get M1, which is what's coming from the expression.
Yeah,
If I hit the shift of that same button, it's the alpha signal.
okay.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
So you could take the shifted source of a button just by holding down the shift key. As well.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and taking it.
Right. So there's the alpha channel coming from the other expression.
Okay.
You're going to have to name those, I guess, now. Expression 1, expression 2, or something like that. But
Well, since it's media 1, media 2.
no, not that
Yeah.
one. That
Oh, that's
that
true.
was just expression going straight into the switcher.
Yeah.
So you could call it expression and media, I guess.
Mhm. Well, it's labeled CG is what it's labeled.
Or CG, yep. The generic name, yep.
Yep.
These labels, by the way, you have 6 different color combinations if you want to go in and change. You have green, yellow, and forgot the other one. Orange. Orange, green, and yellow, and then inverted green, orange, and yellow. So I like to color code my cameras to all be one color, my playback sources to all be one color, graphics all be another color. Just so that at a
Yeah.
glance I can look down the switcher and know the general area I need to go
Yep.
to do things. And that's done on the input menu where you go in and assign the inputs. And these are customizable. I don't know if you probably don't want students doing this, but as far as you guys are concerned,
Because it really
Oh
bad.
my
can-
God.
you can put any input on any button,
Yeah, I
and
know.
the switcher doesn't care.
Yeah, you don't have to go move cables anymore.
Right, right. And it's kind of crazy. You can actually build a memory that has an effect built with, say, camera 4 as part of that memory. Then you can go into the bus mapping and take camera 4 totally out of the switcher. Recall that memory and it'll still recall properly because it recalls the sources rather than the buttons. Or you can move camera 4 to another button and it'll still recall properly.
Yeah.
Now, custom control, which is a keyboard macro, depends heavily on pressing buttons, and it's just the opposite. If I build a custom control that presses this button, it's going to press that button no matter what input is assigned to it. So you have to keep those two things
The custom
in mind for
button
custom controls.
And memory is input.
Right. A memory is like they don't really like me using this term, again, because Sony uses this term, but it's the best way to describe what an effects memory is. It's a snapshot. Take a snapshot of the current state of the switcher, remember it, and then when I want to recall it, recall that snapshot.
Well,
That's the,
snapshot is pretty generic, whether Sony uses it or not. Because,
yeah,
Because we use it to, I do a lot of stage management, stage work, and with the digital audio consoles, you snapshot the console setup, and when the band comes on, when you're doing 7 bands a night, 7 bands in 7 hours, punch, there's your setup.
yep. Band number 2,
Band
hit
two.
the next button.
Yep,
Same thing on here, exact same thing.
wonderful.
And you have 100 memories, 0 through 99.
Okay.
That's usually enough for any one show. If you run out of memories, then you load another show. Takes about 12 seconds to load a whole show. No matter how many memories or custom controls you have. The longest I've seen a carbonite take, which can have up to 3 MEs, 3 times the size, the longest I've ever seen it take was about 25 seconds to totally reload the entire switcher. It's fast. It's faster than their big switchers. Their big switchers will take all day sometimes if it's got a lot of effects.
Okay.
All right. Next module down. Everybody's good with, especially. Oh, I didn't go over auxes. Sorry. Aux outputs are just other outputs of the switcher besides the main program output. Right. So you have 8 outputs on the switcher: program, preview, and whatever. The other ones can be whatever.
Right.
It is 8, right? On the
I
still?
think,
Yeah.
There's aux 1.
You have aux 1? Oh yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so for instance, you're doing a talk show.
Right.
And you have a monitor, an on-set monitor, and the person you're interviewing in this talk show is going to talk about something that happened, and you're going to show images in that monitor
Right.
so that they can point at it or talk about it. Or maybe you've got a giant monitor on your set that the weather guy, instead of doing a chroma key, he's going to stand in front of a giant monitor
Okay.
to do his weather, right?
Yeah.
So you need some way of routing what's feeding that monitor. You could use an external router, or you can rely on the person operating the switcher. So you just take the aux 1 output of the switcher and put it in that monitor, and now that must not actually be aux 1.
it probably is
Don't
not hooked
attach
up.
to anything.
Okay.
One's usually the EX one.
Yeah, because it won't let me change them at all.
Okay.
Huh.
But
I'll
it's-
go and look at that later. But in
yeah.
the system menu, you can dedicate one of the aux outputs to be a fixed source, and it overrides these buttons.
Okay.
And it's probably just set up that way at some point. We can go in
Yeah,
and
well,
look
it
at
was
that.
probably set up that way when it was installed and never got changed because
In 1860, no, yeah.
2011
I'm sorry.
for
2011.
this one.
Okay, not too long ago.
That's when a bunch of this was put in. Anyway,
Anyway, so,
Okay, so that's what it's
when it is
capable
set
of
up
doing.
properly, you have 4 outputs on the switcher that you can route things to, right? So you can just choose a source and send it out there. It might be your weather graphics or CG
Okay.
or one of the cameras, whatever. And it's just another way of getting stuff out of the switcher other than the program output.
Okay.
Right? Anyway, so now moving on to the transition panel, where some of the even more of the fun stuff starts. So the way I describe these 3 rows of buttons is, what do I want to change? How do I want to change it? Change it. What do I want to change? How do I want to change it? Change it. I can hit these buttons all day, and the preview monitor is going to go crazy. I can just bounce around all over the place. And the preview says, what in the world are you doing? But it's trying its best to show me what I'm going to get next.
Right.
This is the next transition. Right? So if I hit just background, that means I just want to change the background. So it's going to show me what's in preview down here.
Okay.
Right? So right now I've got camera 1 online, I got 2 in preview, and if I hit auto trans, that's what I get online. And it does a flip flop, and it puts what was in preview online, and what was online is now in preview.
Okay.
And believe it or not, that's a great advancement. A while back, there were switchers that would not do that, and what was on the air was determined by where this fader arm was.
Yep.
If it was down here, this was your program bus. If it was up here, this was your program bus. And you could get yourself confused real
You
easy.
could get in trouble real fast.
Yeah.
You could split
So-
the bars and they'd both be your program.
So
That's true.
I think that was called a non-additive key or something.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
that's exactly what it was called, non-additive mix.
The now when we do a transition, either with auto trans or with the fader arm, it does a flip flop. So don't psych yourself out and say because this is down, I'm down here.
Okay.
This is just means this is
That's
just where
just
I
the
ended
control.
up. It's just the end of a transition,
Okay.
right? So I'll go back up. It bugs me sometimes just to leave the handle down there. So a lot of times I'll just preset the same source I've got on the air and move it back up. Because, obviously it's not going to change anything. I'm doing the same 2 sources.
Right.
And that gets it out of my way. Most of the time I just hit auto trans. This is way too mechanical. So there are a couple things that you need to use the fader arm for. For instance, if you're doing a game and you've got this set for your standard 15 frame dissolve, and you get into the national anthem, well, you don't want to do a nice slow dramatic dissolve during the national anthem. So you reach up to the fader arm and you do manually a nice slow dissolve. Back and forth to the flag and to the singular and all that stuff. Just the same old stuff. And then when you're ready to do the real stuff after the anthem, then you just hit auto trans to get a decent speed dissolve. Now, next thing I can do is preset key 1. Now, key 1, when I select anything here, it's telling it to either turn it on or turn it off, depending on its current state. There's no keys turned on. So by pressing this key 1 button, I'm saying on my next transition, turn on key 1.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's not doing, again, I have to emphasize this because it never fails, especially with students. They'll say, well, why can't I get camera key 2 on the air? And they're sitting there and they're banging on the button like it's going to change.
Because
But-
it's not on
Because I haven't done a transition yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If key 1 was already on, I guess I changed my settings or something here. Let me put, all right. So key 1's already on.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got it turned on. I just
Okay.
did it manually over here.
Okay.
And I'm telling that key 1 is my next transition. Well, I'm telling the switcher on my next transition, turn off key 1.
Key 1. Right.
That's why preview is not showing me the key.
Okay.
Okay?
Ah. So if you turn off key 1 manually there,
Turn it on. Or
turn it off.
Now it'll be.
Now it's in preview because I'm saying in my next transition, turn on key
Turn
1.
on key 1. Ah, okay. All right.
Okay?
It's a
makes
true
sense.
toggle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It
All
reverse
right.
the
Right.
state.
Now, all that being said, I can turn that key on and off here, or I can do it by selecting it here. Right? Or I can do both a background and a key. So now I'm telling on my next transition,
Right.
change the background to whatever I've got in preset.
Right.
But while you're at it, go ahead and add key 1 to the mix. That's why it's showing it. You're always going to get, when you hit cut or auto trans, you're always going to get what's in preview on the air.
Right. Right.
Now, how it gets there is determined by these buttons, and it can't preview that. Right?
Right.
But as long as it's on dissolve, you know it's just going to be a dissolve. But so when I hit auto trans, it goes to that background and adds the key at the same time. If I hit it again, it all goes away.
Goes back.
Now, with the key turned on and just background selected, now I've got my graphic showing up in preview and program. Why is it doing that? Because all I'm telling it to do is I want to change the background. So that's what it's going to do. It's going to leave key 1 alone. It's on, leave it on. Make sense? Now when I hit auto trans,
Mm-hmm.
I get the new background, but it leaves my key on. That work?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Got a little question mark floating right about here.
Nope, I'll just have to mill it. We would just have to do it a couple of times. I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got to get the gears grinding
Yeah,
up there.
I'm getting a lot of connections.
Got a
not
little
all the
WD-40 we
connections.
can spray.
I
I
was
noticed,
thinking
I noticed
shove some pellets in, get the hamster going.
earlier when you put the key in, when you punch the key in, and then when you took it out, it automatically gave you the background and the key on preview. That's just a feature that it does to you
Well,
punch
you-
the key in.
Like if I turned it on here
Yeah, I guess maybe that's
and then turned it
turn
off
Yeah,
here,
it gives you both.
that's a personality setting that can be changed.
Oh.
I don't like that mode. Somebody's probably went in and changed it because by default it does not do that.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Somebody has turned that on.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would go through some of the personality things probably and make some adjustments, but you just have to be careful to make sure you set it for what you need to be next.
Yeah.
And on your switcher, as long as what you want next is showing up in preview,
Right.
that's what you're going to get.
Okay.
And that's the same on every ROS switcher from the 8 ME, 8 Kiers per ME Acuity switcher that costs $400,000, all the way down to the crossover and even the little baby crossover that only has 6 buttons. The functionality is exactly the same on all of them. That's actually a really good thing about from the crossover up on ROS switchers. If you learn this switcher inside and out, you could move to a carbonite switcher and not skip a beat. 10 or 15 minutes of playing with it, you'd be ready to do a show. If you get carbonite experience and you're really good at that, you could move up to the Acuity switcher and you wouldn't feel out of place at all. You'd say, wow, look at all these more keys I got. But operationally, you'd be right there at home. The menus are a little different. When you get to the bigger switchers, they have a big touch screen for the menus instead of the panel menu. But other than that, functionality is very similar. As a matter of fact, Ross sent me to Sydney, Australia to demo at a trade show, the SMPTE show in Australia, the new Carbonite Black, which is the new 3ME version of the Carbonite. I'd never seen one. I called him up and said, wait a minute, you want me to go to Sydney, Australia and demo a switcher I've never seen? And I talked to Les O'Reilly, the guy that helps design switchers, and he says, oh yeah, you're fine. You know the Carbonite. Okay. And sure enough, in the spare time while we're building this, the booth and all that stuff, I went over and played with. Oh yeah, it works just like a regular Carbonite.
Great.
So they sold like 20 of them that week. It was
Cool.
crazy. Not just because of me, but just a little.
So that pretty much covered all of Australia.
It did. Yeah, it's like a yeah. Yeah, there might have been 3 or 4 guys that went with Sony, but
Entire East Coast.
So, but this
And Darwin.
this show was like Australia's version of NAB.
Yeah. So everybody
But
shows up.
It was much, and it's weird. It's like everybody shows up, but it was much different than NAB in that everybody had already done their research and they were just coming to, in their mind, to get confirmation that their decision and what they were going to buy was a good decision. You know what I'm saying? Now I understand it can do this, right? I was like, yeah, look here, it can do that. And then they'd ask me something else like, I thought it could do that. I just wanted to make sure. But,
Just a
Okay.
quick
Nate?
question. I didn't want Cam 2 as my background for my next transition.
mhm.
Can I disengage that background button on your?
Well,
No,
I mean, if you're doing any kind of a transition, it's because you want to change something,
Right.
right? So if you just want to change a key, you just press the key, and all it's going to do is add the key.
Okay.
It's going to leave the same background up that you have
Okay.
up. Right? Now, what you can do with keys here that you can't do by just directly turning them off and on is other types of transitions. Like if I wanted to wipe in the key or wipe it off, right? I can do that
That
from
was
here.
ugly.
Yes, it was.
Well, I'll put
Let's
it on.
go here. Let's go
Oh, that's better.
a little bit of a, no, let's not use a border. Let's just make it softer.
So you took.
Do a little mini animation.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm too far away to see what you're doing. So you did to set that up. What you wanted to do was.
But you get the flexibility of turning them off and on individually in the switcher by having separate CGs. And really, is in that regard, this CG has more flexibility because you have two channels.
Yep.
And you can put them on independent keyers here. So you could use all three of your keyers just in CG channels. Doubt if you'll ever need that much flexibility, that much.
No,
That's a lot of graphics power.
Really showing them just the basics. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
man, this thing, you
How do you
start
know
digging
that,
around it.
that one has two channels? I mean, where do you go to?
Because I know where to look.
Okay. So I wanna
So,
look on my machine.
so it says data link
Yeah.
and has data link 1 and data link 2 over on the output monitor page on the right edge over there.
Right here, output monitors 1 and 2.
Okay.
And on my take IDs, remember we can change the frame buffers. Well, this CG doesn't have any frame buffers, but they're reassigned to be the ROS link to the switcher. So if I say go to frame buffer 2, right, and then I send that, it just sent that. And if you look right here on my output buffers under ROS link number 2, on layer 0 is that scene that I just double clicked on. And if I look over here on the M2, there it is.
Okay.
There is a little delay because this is talking over a network. So if I don't have another.
I just gotta go double check that ours isn't a two channel.
Is there anything else on that that you can bring up?
So I don't know if it is.
No, we'd have to make something.
Yeah, 'cause there was no samples
So we
loaded
can
on
make
this one.
folders and everything, if
Yeah.
we ever really wanted to be able to do that kind of
Yeah.
quick switching like that, that's pretty flexible, it's crazy. But you can always build it over here too.
Yeah,
It's just
well,
with
you can
two
build it
channels,
out of the
I'm
box
sure.
because they're the
I'm
same-
curious
they're
as to what
essentially the same software.
the preview monitor.
This one's a few versions behind, so
Yeah.
there's going to be some
Preview.
features you run across over here that don't show up over here.
I wonder what upgrading this would
Some,
take.
Curious as to what the preview
It's not horrible,
windows are showing.
but most people find that if you're going to try to stay up to date on your software, it makes more sense to get the service
Yeah.
contract, and you can get a service contract that covers them both.
What's that?
And then when a new
Oh, I'm just
when a
trying to
new
make-
version of the software comes out, they just automatically tell you where to go get it.
We'll talk
reconcile
about that. We
the
have a
preview
real
monitors
problem
here
budgeting
versus all the gear.
service contract.
Oh,
They
bad.
do. They really do.
They
across
they
the
absolutely
college.
do not understand why.
So the guy that
It's
didn't
usually
say
a
want
better
New
deal.
recurring,
York
Yeah.
coming
why
through
this
here.
recurring fee is there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They absolutely hate that.
yeah. The salespeople tell me they run into that all the time.
Something else is coming. No,
Let me go back to.
something else is coming from there,
Yeah.
but it's also going through here.
It's been burned. You know.
No, this
Well,
is the,
that's-
Oh,
this
that's
is the
recorder.
recorder.
That's
That's
recorder.
ED. It's showing
Yeah,
it's coming
that's
out of the
the- that's-
switcher.
That happens to be what the
And
recorder
then
is looking
CG is the new.
Yeah.
Is the new.
Actually, I think that recorder
Yeah,
is
see,
looking at
this
the output of the
changes when he
switcher.
changes that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
That's the record channel of that box.
Yeah.
So I just generated another with the blue box down in the left corner, and I sent that to M1. And if I go, if I put this back to frame buffer 1, now when I send this one, dink. So there's a little bit of a delay there,
Okay.
because it's just feeding it over the network. And it's actually creating the graphic and sending it as a graphic file to the media store.
Okay.
It's not like it's just sending the data.
All right.
It's sending an actual graphic image. But that's still pretty fast, considering.
Yeah.
And it's sending a full frame, even though that's just a little box in the middle of the frame.
Right.
It's sending an entire frame, so it's not going to take any longer,
Right.
even if you do a big full screen graphic. So I'm going to build a 2-box effect. And I'm going to do that by,
Stand in front of the camera.
I thought we put background on the shift black key. Didn't we do that?
I'll get the audio anyway.
We were going to. Because we got, oh no, we did it here. Okay.
Yeah, we'll put that in.
Something important to know about the background generator is that it will do a wash using a switcher white pattern. Right, and this is all generated internally within the wash color generator.
Okay.
So it's just a button, right? So when I punch it up, I get that. But I can do neat things to that. I can change that hue. I can put that where I want it. I can where's my softness? Make it nice and soft. Change the aspect, which on a diagonal wipe just changes the angle. And I can get to hue, saturation, and luminance 2 and change that color as well. So I'm just going to make it almost black. Let's just make it black. So I got a nice graduated And some graphics and boxes and stuff like that look nice
Yeah.
instead of just a solid color.
Yeah.
So, and you can do anything you can do to a white, you can do to this. So you got, different patterns. So let's go with that one. So I'm going to build a 2-box. I'm just going to put camera 1 into key 1, make it a DVE, turn it on. Right, so there's that box. And let's put it at, now we got to go a little smaller. Those audio meters over there throw me off. Makes me think I'm closer to the edge than I really am. And I'm going to put a little border on that. I don't like solid blue over a blue background though. So let's go, where my preset go? Change that to, come on, there it is. We get a nice white border. Looks good over the blue. Alright, so that's one box. Now I just copied key 1 to key 2.
How did you do that?
I'm not telling, it's a secret. Let me, I thought I did. Let's see.
Yeah.
Key 2. Oh, it's not doing it. I think you've got one other version of software you can upgrade on this switcher.
Okay.
We
may
need,
have to do that.
well, I'll help you look that up before I leave, but,
Okay.
because I know you're supposed to be able to copy keys. You're on version 4.0. I think there's a 4.1 or a 4.2.
There always is.
Anyway, great thing about Ross is software updates are free.
Oh, good.
It's crazy. On the Carbonite switcher, up through version 7 of the software, everybody thought they had a 2ME switcher. With version 8, they introduced mini-me's. They did not get sued, believe it or not, over using that name. Mini-me's added 4 more slightly underpowered effects banks. So, just with a software update, everybody now had a 6ME switcher.
Cool.
So, just the way they are. So, key 2, DVE. Let's put camera 2 in there. Let's go to border. Make it roughly the same size border. That's pretty close.
You're gonna see tomorrow if you can build this, right? You're gonna see if you can do this on yours.
Yeah. Or the one on Holly.
Alright. So there's my 2-box. Key 1 is the left box, right?
Okay.
Key 2 is the right box.
Okay.
If I select key 1 here, I can change what's in the box, just like any other source, right?
Okay.
Select key 2, I got other sources. Now I'm going to save this. Actually, no, let's add one more source. Let's go key 3 and make it to CG. Turn that on. Now we
There you
got
go.
now we got a big all-around good-looking graphic package there. I want to save that. So I go to Store. Now these numbers they're small, but you can see them. They're 0 through 9.
Mm-hmm.
That's your first 9 memories. Then I have over here my bank. I can go bank 0 through bank 9.
So,
So you have
100.
100 memories.
You have
Yeah.
100 memories, 0 through 99.
Mhm.
Yeah. But so I select my bank. I can't select the memory here because it's wanting me to just hit a button. So I'm just going to hit button 0. Right? It jumped back to recall to tell me, yeah, I'm done. Okay. Now I can turn off all these keys. I can select any sources. I can just do all kinds of stuff. Okay. And I
Oh,
hit
I like that.
recall 0. There's my effect back.
Recall.
Wow.
What? Where? When? What? Recall.
Right beside the store.
And it immediately puts it on the air.
Because that's the way I build it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now,
Oh,
you have
so-
to select
Oh,
Oh, because that's where you
recall,
build it.
select
If
your
you built
bank,
it in
and then hit a
preview.
number.
yeah.
Well, it stays in whatever bank you leave it in.
Brings it to
Okay.
preview.
And
But let's
you'll
say you're moving along and you've got
you
something.
say you're up in bank
5.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know this affects in bank 0.
Okay.
I would hit recall would get me to this menu,
Okay. Yeah.
right? Because it could be in some other menu. I might be in, whatever
Yeah.
else. So I hit recall. That gets me to that.
Yeah.
I just whip it down to 0.
Yeah.
and then-
That's what it's. Yeah.
And
But you want to select the bank and then select the.
Yes,
Yeah.
because you could have a button 0 on bank 7 that's something totally different.
Right. Right. Okay.
You can build that all in preview, and then when you recall, it can go to preview, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the way we do that is we have to do one extra step. And I've got to check some settings that should be the default, but they're not. And that's the recall system-wide settings. Recall mode is set for, everything is set for recall. And instead of that, I want everything to be recall, next. I want my recall system-wide settings to be set to memory. When I set the system-wide settings to memory, it allows me to, on an individual memory basis, decide what I want to recall. So this, like I said, this should be the default. I don't know why. So let me just run through each of these real quick and make them all memory. So I've got program bus, memory, preset bus, memory, transition, memory, next transition, memory. That doesn't do anything. That doesn't do anything. Key bus key 1, memory. Key 2, memory. Key 3, memory. Now go to key, is it active or not? Memory, memory, memory. What type of key is it? Memory. These are all the things that a memory saves that I'm reading off. And does it have a mask turned on? Memory. Memory. And this is something you should not ever have to do again. This is the system-wide
Cool.
settings.
Okay.
Okay.
Media, memory. Media 2, memory. Media 3, memory. Media 4, memory. Auxes. I'll put those on memories as well, but right now yours aren't active, so it doesn't really matter. Camera control you don't have. The rest of the stuff you don't have. Okay, so that took care of setting the system-wide settings. Now I can hit store. So I'm going to, before I hit the store, I'm going to turn those keyers off, and I'm going to put something else online, right? And I'm going to preview my effect over here,
Okay.
right? So I want
Oh,
I want background to be preset.
Okay.
I want my 3 keyers to be preset, right? So that's my effect in preview, the way I want it. Now, when I store it, and I'm just going to store this back to 0, cover up the old one, right? I hit the store button, but before I actually hit the button to store it under, I hit next, and I go to program bus. Right now it's set for recall. I'm just going to turn that to no recall.
Oh.
That tells it to ignore this row of buttons.
Okay.
So now when I recall this memory, it's going to recall everything on the switcher except this row of buttons.
Huh. Okay.
That way it won't affect what's on the air.
Right.
That
As
makes
long
sense.
as, right?
Yep.
Now I just go ahead and store it.
Okay.
So now I can have something else over here. Let's say I've got that on the air. And I need to put something else. Let's change the keyers, make them all totally something different. Key 3, something else. Right? So I've totally messed up my keyers.
Yeah.
Right? I've got something else in preview. So that effect doesn't exist anywhere except when I hit recall 0. Bang, there it is in preview. Did not change what was on the air.
No.
So say I had something else on the air, like P1, and I recall it. It still left it, but it recalled the proper effect over here.
Cool. Wow.
Now, what it would have messed up
Right.
is if I had on key 1 some kind of CG turned on.
Right.
It's going to take that away
Mm-hmm.
at the instant I recall that memory,
Right.
because it is recalling the keyers.
Yes.
That make sense?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So. Okay, good.
All right.
Next part of the switcher training is for each one of you to build me a memory of some kind, like an over-the-shoulder box or a 2 box, and you're not allowed to use mine. Okay? Hands-on time. Black on line. Menu. Reset. This is an important function. If you hold down the menu button, and notice one of these buttons over here is labeled reset, and tap that, it resets all your keyers to default.
Uh-huh.
So they're all set for black, they're all set for auto select. It made all my sources black, so it just cleaned up the panel. Now, it did not erase any memories I had saved. It did not erase any custom controls.
That's menu and
Just hold down menu and hit reset while you're holding
Got
it,
it.
just like a shift key. That's a good way to start when you're building a new effect, because it forces you to make any menu changes that you need for your effect. Otherwise, you may build an effect and think it's the most gorgeous effect ever created on a raw switcher. You save it and you go running to get the boss and say, hey, come look what I created. You walk back in the room and you try to recall it, and only half of it recalls because somebody had some option turned off. Right? If you do a reset before you start building, you know anything that's turned off is turned off because you turned it
You're
off.
starting it clean.
You're starting with a clean slate.
Okay.
Then once you get it built, the best way to test an effect is to do a reset and then do your recall. Hey, it worked.